happy to be here. I'm sorry that I can't be there with you guys in person. I hope you're having better weather than we are in New York. So I'm really excited to be here, and I want to leave time for questions at the end. So I just put together a few slides. And if you guys also, if I'm talking too fast or if you're having sound issues, just like wave your hands furiously, and at some point I'll pick up on that. I currently oversee audience strategy for Time Inc., which means that I work across all of the 116 brands we have both in the UK and in the US on growing audience and specifically growing engagement. So how do we make people come to our sites and then stay on our sites? I like to think of this as beyond scale. What does it mean once you've reached a certain number in traffic? How do you get people to then come back and stay on your site for longer periods of time? I'm sure you guys have talked a lot about attention web and things like that. So I'm thinking a lot about that. So I'm going to walk through a few quick steps around what Time did in the past year to double its traffic. So I'm bringing up my screen share now, which will mean that I can't see you anymore, and you can't see me. So hold on. I think this is what I want. No, this is what I want. This is what I want. Okay, you can see this.
We can.
I'm going into full screen mode, guys. Here it goes. All right. How Time doubled its traffic to greater than 52 million uniques in 1 year. So last March, something that was really key for Time was moving away from its branding as a weekly magazine and moving much more toward breaking news. So we relaunched the site with this design really built around being mobile first and using the infinite scroll. One really key design principle for us was focusing on breaking news, incorporation of video, incorporation of social media. So you'll see up on that tablet mock, you'll see that there's a breaking news widget with a Twitter button, and you'll see both below the Israel Flights Grounded picture and story that those play buttons are there emphasizing video. This was really huge for us, and just sort of updating the look of the site was something that was really successful for us in both engagement and in time on site. The next step was a real change in publishing strategy. So this became all about being a 24/7 global newsroom. We have a team in Hong Kong, we have a team in London, we have a team in New York, in addition to people all over the world. And this is something that we really focused on our velocity and on our volume. And Time now publishes 150 pieces of content per day. This is 24 hours a day. And so it really became important in changing that magazine narrative to making sure people knew if news broke, we were on top of it, or we were breaking the news. You'll see that there's a tweet up here that doesn't have a link in it. And that's something that has also been really important to our strategy, is making sure it's not all about just driving traffic and driving people back to the site. It's about informing them on whatever platform they're on. Additionally, one of the first things that I did was build an audience engagement team, which was really focused on what I call external levers of growth. So these are social, search, partnerships, newsletters. They're all key elements of discovery. I'm very much driven by this idea of giving people news they don't know they need. And the way that you do that is you infiltrate their streams. You find them where they are. So this really ties into a huge focus on social. You know, this is social as everyone's job, which I'm sure has been a very common theme that you've talked about today. And we think a lot about optimization on all platforms and all levels. So that Facebook real estate that you have, that Twitter real estate, it's so important. And it's important that it be thought about from both the headline perspective, the photo, the thumbnail photo perspective, the deck, you know, with things like Twitter cards. You know, I know journalists are all on TweetDeck and we're following it that way, but most people are on twitter.com. So what does it look like for them? Are we being redundant in our tweets? Do our Twitter cards the exact same as the tweet that we're putting out? How can we get more bang for our buck? And how can we make more of that small real estate? Something else that we did, working with a company called PopTip, and now this year a company called Pinion, is we've done a lot of social voting campaigns. And we've done a lot of just pop-up votes where we'll really try and engage our audience around conversations that we're having on the site. Who should be the next Batman? Who should be the next Wonder Woman? Or, you know, who would you vote for Person of the Year for Time 100? We're currently running a big campaign around the Time 100. Another key element is a focus on discovery. You know, a lot of people talk about gaming SEO and things like that, and we've never seen it that way. The way we see it is, if we're writing this, it should be found. If we're writing it, we want people to read it. And so that's where it really becomes key to think about, what are people searching for? You know, we're following Google Trends. We're really thinking ahead about this, and it's absolutely something that we optimize for and that we really think about the details on. The next step is expanding distribution. This is really something that comes down to things like newsletters and partnerships. I know that this year there's been a lot of discussion around the power of email. And we really take this seriously. Last year, one of the first things that we did was we took 10 sort of vertically themed email newsletters that were algorithmically programmed, whether they were tech or business or health or arts and entertainment. And they had about industry average open rates, 23%. We took all 10 of those and we combined them into one newsletter. So we took 10 successful products and combined them into one. This was a risk, and this was something that I think we weren't sure was going to pan out. But we've seen huge returns on this. We've seen that people would much rather have a one editorially curated product that is chosen by the editors of Time than these algorithmically programmed emails that are just based on one thing. So we modeled it after the brief, which is really actually goes back to the origins of the magazine and the briefing section. Briefing is supposed to be that Henry Luce always said that Time magazine should be a magazine that people can, a busy man or he said a man, but I would say a man or woman, can read in an hour and know everything about the world. And so we like to think of the brief, the email product around which the homepage is also designed. We think about this as the 12 things to know now. And when we put it together, I mean, we spend hours at night going back and forth around the subject line because, in our opinion, the email inbox is the new version of inviting someone into your home. Everybody has the right to kick out a guest who's not behaving. If we don't deliver on that subject line, we're giving a reader every reason to tell us, you're not coming into my most private and personal area anymore. And we've seen the success of this newsletter. It's now getting open rates of greater than 40% every single day. I mean, we're hitting 50 and 60%. And this is a really impressive number for the industry. The final thing is really remind and reinforce, which is that Rome wasn't built in a day. And by that, I mean that this is something that we work on every single day. This is something that we're thinking about all the time. And as we take steps and experiment on recirculation and various tools and new platforms and new social hubs, we're thinking about how can we remind and reinforce people of this every day. It's not something that happens overnight. That is my contact info, and now I'm coming back to you. Hold on, let me figure out how to do that though. Exit full screen. Yes, that is what I want to do. Wait, there I am. No, I'm not. I'm almost there. Hold on, I'm sorry guys. This is like the most stressful thing I've had to do all day. Okay, wait, I figured it out. I'm there. I'm here. I'm here.
You are here. Yay! We see you.
Perfect. With 10 minutes left for questions.
We already have 2, at least.
Great.
Hang on. Callie, you should be here. This is Dave Gearing.
I know. I'm sorry.
Really, really bummed you're not here, but I wanted to know if you could share anything at all about how audio is performing for you guys from an engagement perspective.
Actually, that is such a fantastic question, and I can't believe I forgot to mention it. Thank you. That's Dave, right?
It is.
Hi. I can't see you in my corner, but I knew your voice. It's the power of audio. Audio has actually been a huge part of our strategy around the brief newsletter. We have an integration with Spoken Layer, which is an audio podcasting player. And every article that goes into the brief on the homepage and in the newsletter is available to people at any time of day. This is through streaming, and we've actually seen tremendous engagement around it. We're seeing 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes of engagement with people listening to this on the go. And this really, it predates Serial and sort of the rise of podcasting. So I like to think that we were early to the trend. But we've seen that people really do want this kind of quick news on the go. And it's really put a role of podcasting for Time into people's lives.
Okay. Wow, we have 3 more hands up after this question. So,
Hi, Callie. I'm Joy Mayer.
Hi.
Hi. So you talked about how social was everybody's job, and you're right, that has been sort of a theme. I wonder if you could expand on what that means in your shops in terms of like everybody like the reporter in Jerusalem, or everybody like on every team there are people whose job it is. What does that mean?
It's really a way of thinking. So for us, it's really about what do you want to know? I mean, I was actually just speaking with a Northwestern student who's here doing a JR residency at Time, and I just said to her, I want to know what your friends want to know about the news. I want to know what people are talking about and how they're talking about it. And so for us, it's in our daily stand-up meetings, it's really around what are people thinking around this story? What's the not obvious headline? What's the way that people want this story explained to them? And so social being everyone's job really means both a fluency on the platforms, but also a real thought around conversation and sort of what people are saying. One of the amazing things about Time is its access to powerful people and to influential people. And so what does that mean when we're talking about Iran and a potential deal in Iran? Who do you want to hear on that? Or who do you want to hear on what's happening in Indiana? We're thinking around voices and around social conversation.
Hi, my name's Koichi. I'm a graduate student here at the journalism school. Hi. I was just looking at Time Magazine's Twitter feed, and you guys have 7.1 million followers, and that's pretty good. That's about the same as The Onion and double what The Daily Show has, but Barack Obama has like 51 million, and New York Times is 15 million. Is there some sort of this is
very helpful info, by the way. You're hired.
when you're strategizing, when you're a big operation with a lot of Twitter followers, and you're trying to strategize, you create a lot of breaking news. So Twitter is very important for a publication like Time. Do you have some sort of strategy for getting more Twitter for getting Twitter followers? What's your thinking about your whole strategy for your?
That's a really good question. I think our main strategy is really trying to be as conversational as possible. I think there's certainly a place for RSS feed generated Twitter feeds, and we see ourselves as the opposite of that. We certainly do a lot of headline link type tweets, but for the most part, we also want to be starting conversations and pulling out really interesting nuggets or data around specific stories. Maybe it's a great pull quote, something that makes you think. I mean, again, I'll go back to this idea of news you don't know you need. What's a way to pull someone into a story that they might not necessarily have known they had interest in? Oftentimes, it's not just the headline. It's some incredibly compelling quote, or it's a statistic, or it's something that might be again, what are people talking about version of this story. Is that a good answer?
Hey, Callie. I'm Megan with the Center for Investigative Reporting. Hey, I just had a quick question about your newsletter and kind of the production as you guys go in there, and it's kind of like a two-parter. When I was wondering, are you guys interested in mostly highlighting Time articles in that, or are you thinking that this can be a more curatorial experience, as I think BuzzFeed and some other places are going? And then just what's that production like? Is this automated? Do you have somebody manning that? Like what's the kind of back end to that, and how you guys are making decisions of what goes in the subject lines or leading it?
Yeah, fantastic question. Multiple questions. Let me think. Okay, curation. We do Time content and Time Inc. content. So, I mean, picking from brands like People, Entertainment Weekly, Fortune, Sports Illustrated, Food and Wine, Real Simple. I mean, we have nothing but incredible content internally. So we do have newsletters that are more curatorial. We have a parenting one that's much more about aggregating the web. But for the brief specifically, it's Time and Time Inc. content. And the process of putting it together is done by the morning news editor who works in our CMS to pull together touts and photos and compiles all of that. It's a pretty quick process. I would say probably like 15 minutes, I think. Don't quote me on that because I am not the person doing it every day. And in terms of subject line, this is actually my most favorite part. And I think that I probably torture this horrible email chain because I'll just respond and be like, why would I click that? Who cares? What does this mean? Like, I'm just like trying to really push them on that. But it really is, what's the value for the reader and for the most inclusive group of readers possible. You know, if I don't have kids, would I open that email subject line? How can we broaden that into something that, again, is news I don't know I need? Even if I don't have kids, how can we make this interesting to people? You know, Indiana and what's happening there. How can we broaden this? I mean, before it really took off, how can we broaden this to something that is a story that people outside of Indiana say, hey, I wonder if that's happening in my state, or I wonder what else I can find out about that. So we think a lot about that. And it's also just, it's really interesting to see the data. It's all an experiment. I mean, we look really closely at the data. We recently just added a dissatisfaction index, which is really how many people unsubscribed based on that day's subject line. And so we want to know, you know, what do people love and what do they hate?
Callie, my name is Nathan Byrne. My question is, how important is it? What's the role of companion video in increasing engagement in the content you're putting out there?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. We have at least one piece of multimedia in every story that we publish on time.com, whether it's video or a photo gallery. That has been incredibly huge for time on site and for just general engagement. We have obviously an incredible photo department, but we've also had an incredible group of people who've come in and just injected this video blood, both across all of Time Inc. and specifically at Time. I think last month we hit 15 million video streams. So we have had just these numbers that show the engagement based on the article that people are on is incredibly high.
Hi, I'm Marty. I just wondered, is this obvious to everyone in the room but me, but how does a newsroom curate and manage 50 people contributing to a Twitter stream and making sure there's not overlap and there's not mistakes and there's not, how is that handled? Is it an office by office?
So that's a really good question, and I should clarify. We actually have 3 people who run the main Time feed. 2 are in New York and 1 is in Hong Kong. So while social, in terms of the larger, broader part of the conversation, is everyone's job, meaning everyone needs to be thinking about it and thinking about sort of how their story plays a part on the social conversation spectrum. The people who run the feed, there are just 3 people. I think it would probably be a very disastrous mess if we had 50 people contributing. So I apologize for not being more clear on that. It is still something that we're always looking for input on, though, outside of the audience engagement team. What would be a good tweet? What would be a good Facebook post for this?
Hey, Callie, it's Carla Zanoni. You can't see me. I'm in the corner.
Hey!
How are you?
Good. We still have to get lunch.
Yeah. I owe you an email. I owe everyone an email. But can you talk a little bit about your Facebook strategy and resurfacing content? I think that's a big change in the past year.
Definitely. So our Facebook audience, actually, the way I knew that Time was breaking through was when people started saying to, in the digital space, was when people started saying to me, Time is always in my Facebook feed. And I was like, that's such a good thing. You know, Time is really lucky in that we cover such a broad spectrum of things that the groups for which there are a lot of Facebook conversations, whether it's parenting or entertainment or technology or health, we're lucky enough to cover all of them. And yeah, we have added a bunch of content partners over the last year, people with whom we share content, and that has been a really successful part of our Facebook strategy.
Callie, that's going to have to be the final.
I only have 24 seconds left.
Yeah, you do? Well, you're a better clock keeper than I am, for sure. Do you have anything in 20 seconds?
I know. Do I have anything to say? Thank you. I wish I were there with you guys. This looks really fun, and I'm sorry not to be there, but I'm really glad that you guys had me, and I'd love to talk to anybody over email or Twitter or phone.
I have a feeling you're about to get really busy on that. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.